SpaceX's first flight of Starship version 3 has slipped from April to early to mid-May 2026, and there is a specific technical reason why. This video covers exactly what Starship V3 is, what it can do, what the testing campaign has looked like, and what still needs to happen before this rocket leaves the ground. Starship V3, also called Block 3, is a ground-up redesign of the most powerful launch vehicle ever assembled. SpaceX has assigned two specific vehicles to the first V3 flight: Booster 19, the Super Heavy first stage, and Ship 39, the Starship upper stage. Together, analysts and SpaceX itself are describing this stack as the transition point from development testing to operational readiness, which is a different category of milestone than any of the 11 flights that came before it. Starship V2, the version that flew through Flight 11, could carry approximately 35 metric tons to low Earth orbit in a fully reusable configuration. Starship V3 targets more than 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit in a fully reusable configuration, with some estimates putting the theoretical ceiling closer to 200 tons. For scale, that approaches what the Saturn V could carry in expendable mode, and unlike Saturn V, this rocket is designed to fly again. V3 also stands taller at 408.1 feet compared to V2's 403.9 feet, carries more propellant, and runs on an entirely new engine generation, which brings us to the part of this story that deserves its own section. SpaceX's third-generation full-flow staged combustion Methalox engine carries the Raptor 3 name, and the official specs were published directly by the company. Each engine produces 280 tons force of thrust at sea level with a specific impulse of 350 seconds, an engine mass of 1,525 kilograms, and a combined engine plus vehicle hardware mass of 1,720 kilograms. Stacked against Raptor 2, that works out to roughly 22% more thrust per engine, and with 33 of them on Booster 19, the calculated total liftoff thrust lands at approximately 9,240 tons force. But the thrust gain is not the most interesting thing about Raptor 3. What SpaceX removed is. Musk described the engineering challenge in his own words: "The amount of work required to simplify the Raptor engine, internalize secondary flow paths, and add regenerative cooling for exposed components was staggering." As a result, Raptor 3 doesn't require any heat shield, eliminating heat shield mass and complexity, as well as the fire suppression system. It is also lighter, has more thrust, and has higher efficiency than Raptor 2. Truly a work of art. No engine heat shield, which is the first time that has been achieved on a rocket engine of this type. The design works by pulling what were previously external flow paths inside the engine and applying regenerative cooling to every exposed component, and the result is an engine that is simultaneously lighter, more powerful, and easier to service between flights. On a program built around rapid reuse, that last point matters as much as the thrust numbers. SpaceX had Raptor 3 engines in scaled production well before the IFT-12 test campaign even started, with serial numbers up to at least 68, observed leaving the McGregor test facility in Texas by November 2025. October 13, 2025 is where this story picks up, because that is the date of Flight 11, the last Starship flight before V3. Every major objective on that mission was met, making it the most successful Starship test to date. And after that flight, SpaceX redirected its full attention to V3 hardware. Before IFT-12 could be attempted, both vehicles needed to clear a series of ground tests, and the schedule from that point forward moved quickly. Booster 19 completed cryogenic pressure-proof testing in early February 2026, and between February 27th and March 5th, Ship 39 went through 3 consecutive cryogenic pressure-proof tests at SpaceX's Massey test site, including a new test type called squeeze tests, designed to simulate the mechanical loads the vehicle experiences when caught by Starbase's tower arms. That capability did not even need to be tested in earlier Starship generations. Pad 2, the new second orbital launch pad at Starbase, also cleared its own validation during this period. Its water-cooled top deck and full deluge system tests both ran without issue, and IFT-12 will be its first ever Starship launch. When both pads at Starbase are fully operational, SpaceX gains the ability to run overlapping launch campaigns simultaneously, which effectively doubles site capacity. On March 7th, Booster Booster 19 rolled out to Pad 2, and that same day, Musk told the public that Flight 12 was approximately 4 weeks away, pointing directly at early April 2026. 3 days later, on March 10th, a full propellant loading test filled the booster with liquid oxygen and liquid methane in roughly 30 minutes, about 5 minutes faster than equivalent tests on V1 and V2 hardware. March 16th, 2026 stacked 2 firsts into a single test, the first ever static fire of a V3 vehicle and the first ever engine firing from Pad 2. SpaceX ignited 10 of Booster 19's Raptor 3 engines while the vehicle stayed anchored to the launch mount, and the test ended early due to a groundside issue. SpaceX confirmed the results on March 18th via X, and the statement is worth quoting directly. Initial Super Heavy V3 and Starbase Pad 2 activation campaign complete, wrapping up several days of testing that loaded cryogenic fuel and oxidizer on a V3 vehicle for the first time. While the 10-engine static fire ended early due to a groundside issue, we saw successful startup on all installed Raptor 3 engines. Next up, preparing the booster for a 33-engine static fire. That language carries a distinction worth holding on to. The issue came from the ground infrastructure, not from the engines. All 10 installed Raptor 3 engines lit on cue, which is the propulsion result that matters most for flight readiness. Booster 19 still needed 23 additional engines installed before a full 33-engine static fire could happen, and that meant rolling the booster back to the production facility. By April 3, 2026, reporter Sawyer Merritt had confirmed the IFT-12 window moved to May, with Teslarati separately pinpointing early to mid-May as the current target. As of this recording, the 33-engine static fire has not taken place, and it is the one remaining gate between the current status and a launch attempt. 3 timeline shifts have now occurred on IFT-12. Musk's March 7th statement pointed to early April. NASA's spaceflight had flagged a possible late April window. The target now sits in May. SpaceX timelines have historically run optimistic, and this one is not an exception. SpaceX filed confidentially for its IPO on April 1, 2026, targeting a June NASDAQ listing, and analysts noted directly that a clean Starship V3 flight before the June roadshow would boost investor sentiment. A successful May launch keeps that window open, but the margin for another slip is now very thin. Starlink's next-generation V3 satellites are built specifically for Starship deployment and cannot be launched on Falcon 9 in any meaningful quantity, which means the entire next phase of constellation growth waits on IFT-12 going cleanly. Bill Gerstenmaier, SpaceX's senior principal flight reliability engineer, stated at a conference that if the first V3 flight succeeds, SpaceX may attempt an orbital deployment on the very next flight, and that level of confidence tells you something about how the team views the hardware readiness. Ship 39 also carries docking ports, configuring it as a tanker-capable vehicle with on-orbit propellant transfer capability. That specific feature is the direct enabler of NASA's Artemis human landing system, because lunar missions under that architecture require multiple orbital refueling operations before a crewed lander can descend, and without V3 tankers, that schedule simply does not hold together. Here is where things stand. Starship V3, stacking Booster 19 and Ship 39, carries more than 3 times the payload capacity of the version that flew through Flight 11. Its 33 Raptor 3 engines produce a combined liftoff thrust of approximately 9,240 tons force. Vehicle-side testing on both stages is largely complete, and Pad 2 has been activated and validated. What remains is one test, the full 33-engine static fire on Booster 19. Once that clears, and once FAA licensing is confirmed, stacking and integration can proceed toward a launch attempt in early to mid-May 2026. April came and went because of a ground-side issue on Pad 2 during a 10-engine test. Pad 2 has never launched a Starship before, and getting the infrastructure right before an attempt is exactly what a test campaign exists to accomplish. The Raptor 3 engines lit when asked. The vehicles have cleared their structural testing. The issue was in the pad itself, and that is now being corrected. Whether May holds depends almost entirely on how the 33-engine static fire performs. Watch for that result, because it will tell you whether IFT-12 is on schedule or whether there will be a 4th timeline to talk about.